Traffic headaches, traffic tie-ups, traffic wars. It's the downside of Nashville's growth. News 2 investigates the big plans and all the Plan Bs. Nashville 2018 Traffic Wars. Thursday in every newscast on News 2.
Red, yellow, green. As soon as you see the light, you know what to do. But what it takes for the lights to change colors isn't as simple as stop, slow, or go.
I think that's what most people don't realize is how much technology is actually in the signal cabinet working for their benefit to try to get them where they need to go.
Jeff Hammond is the Assistant Director of Transportation for Metro Public Works.
This is our second busiest intersection.
He drives Nashville roads to make sure the traffic lights are working just as he helped design them to.
We do counts to tell us how much demand there is on every approach, every turning movement. So we want to know how many people want to go left, how many people want to go right, and we do that for all approaches of the intersection.
For all 850 traffic signals in Davidson County. With all that information, engineers come up with a pattern to keep traffic moving and to keep you from getting stopped at light after light.
We talk about synchronization. We're talking about making sure that traffic follows a platooning order so that traffic can progress through a corridor in a fashion so you're not getting stuck at every red light. The signals know where they are with respect to each other in their timing pattern and how to keep traffic moving the most efficiently.
Most lights are synchronized, and from the moment you pull up to the light, the controller or these big silver boxes you see on the side of the road start talking to each other.
What happens next can be seen from Metro's central operating system.
Those are the pedestrian signals.
It shows 560 intersections online in real time. Stacy Warwick is the traffic operations supervisor and can adjust problems with a traffic signal with the click of a mouse. So the next time you're stuck at a light, remember it takes technicians, engineers, IT experts, and a little bit of patience to get you from red to green. Morgan Hightower, News 2.
More people, more cars, and more traffic.
The traffic in Nashville has really gotten, the last couple of years, really expanded.
As Nashville's It City status grows, so do the traffic troubles.
It's real bad at rush hour time.
There's a wreck there every day.
Not knowing if getting through downtown Nashville is going to take them 10 minutes or 2 hours.
Tonight, we dig deeper into the problem.
I've seen the traffic growing, yet some of the traffic lights stay the same.
And look at the short-term fixes.
Making sure that traffic follows a platooning order so you're not getting stuck at every red light.
Including what happens if the mayor's transportation plan fails.
Welcome to this News 2 Live Town Hall. Nashville 2018 Traffic Wars. Nashville's mass transit plan. The vote to keep it or can it. We show you what's at stake and how everyone in Middle Tennessee will be affected. Nashville 2018, the transit vote. Thursday, April 12th on News 2 in every newscast.
Nashville. Once known as a 15-minute town, now
it just seems like it's just taking longer and longer and longer to get anywhere.
with the growing population, that problem on pace to only get worse.
We actually see ride sharing and even further into the future self-driving cars as totally a part of the solution.
Uber and Lyft, part of Metro's long-term Let's Move Nashville transit plan, an idea that could keep momentum even if the May vote doesn't pass. Aaron Hafkenscheel, Metro Nashville's Director of Transportation, says it would rely on the city's existing bus system.
It's essentially a Lyft or Uber-like platform, but for a transit agency.
It's the concept behind the rideshare pilot program called Mobility on Demand, now in the planning stages.
Here's how the program would work. Those who don't live nearby an MTA hub would pull up the Mobility on Demand app on their phone and then order a rideshare to the nearest hub. Take that rideshare.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, yeah?
Good. And then the connecting bus to their destination. Let's go.
The draw, convenience, and cost.
The mobility on demand zones would extend to an 8-square-mile radius from key corridors. Amanda Cleland of the MTA.
We can condense some of that flow of traffic between neighborhoods from the outlying areas of the county into the downtown area.
MTA CEO Steve Bland says with the convenience of the app's automatic booking could come cheaper fares because the program would potentially be subsidized. But even if the idea is successful, he says expanding the program rides on the transit vote.
There's always a capacity to add service. The challenge is without the funding that's made available under Let's Move Nashville, we would compete in the Metro budget with all of the other departments.
Other short-term fixes, more crosstown MTA routes and expanding flex stops, which connect MTA riders beyond fixed routes. But again, the MTA says the catch is getting that designated funding.
We recognize that this is a need, and so while it may be a lot slower to roll out, we do intend to roll these programs out.
News 2 wants to know in an online poll, if you could vote now, are you for or against the transit plan? Cast your vote on WKRN.com.
Traffic, congestion, gridlock. The downside of being the it city.
Let's Move Nashville.
One proposed solution has a hefty price tag, as much as $9 billion. There is support.
This is a plan that's been vetted by experts around the country. It's a plan that follows the best models for what's been successful around the country, and it does provide transportation options for everybody in the community.
There is opposition.
Before you decide how we should spend $9 billion, take the time to learn more about the alternatives.
And in only a matter of days, voters will decide. Right now, you will hear from those on both sides of the Let's Move Nashville transit plan. News 2's live town hall, Nashville 2018. The transit vote starts right now.
If the city was honest, if the mayor and the supporters were honest, they would say this is not about transit, this is about economic development. This is about building the density to justify the light rail.
But isn't it about growth? I mean, isn't it about shaping where the growth is? And isn't it about building a plan to address the current, the growth that's coming? So I think there's a hesitance to say this is going to fix current traffic because they know more people are coming. So it's a matter of building and shaping where that development ought to be so it will be more efficient.
A growing city.
I wasn't able to afford it.
Leaves many behind.
It's just not a good feeling at all.
The new challenges as homelessness evolves. Homeless in Music City. All day Thursday in every newscast, only on News 2.
The view from here looks pretty good for Roger Webster. His new apartment at Madison Towers is a breath of fresh air and a blessing.
I said, Lord, thank you. I said, I can't do nothing better than move to a better place that I can have my own kitchen.
Webster moved to Nashville from Columbia, Tennessee several years ago in search of new opportunities. He got a job as a cook at Belmont University, but struggled to find housing. He was staying at the Nashville Rescue Mission, and some nights even sleeping on the street.
I said to myself, I can't do this no more. I said, I want to be in a place of my own.
So Webster took the initiative to get a case manager and social worker who did help him get a place of his own. But he lived at two properties where he didn't feel comfortable being long-term.
People was up there, drugs. First now I don't deal with no drugs at all.
Then he got the call that an apartment had opened up at this Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency property in Madison.
I jumped up for joy and being happy and everything that I'm in a better place.
People without housing, it's a housing status. They're already in our neighborhood. Let's stop talking about how we can push them out. Let's look at how we can integrate them and their strengths. And I hate to even say them versus us. It's all of us.
Judith Tackett is the director of the Metropolitan Homelessness Commission, which launched the House Nashville campaign in 2013. The mission is to get more people in housing and keep them there via access to services.
In 2017, on average, our community providers have housed 117 individuals a month.
The latest initiative that started in October is the Drive to End Homelessness. It provides housing navigation services and bus passes in partnership with MTA. The average time for someone receiving a bus pass to housing is just 69 days.
Frankly, is way faster than I would have thought, and it also shows how transit relates to housing and accessing services.
The commission also has a new homeless outreach team that coordinates with service providers to get people help quickly. No surprise, Tackett says more funding is needed, not just government dollars, but from private businesses that will invest in affordable housing.
Egg noodles.
Webster is forever grateful for those who invested their time in him.
You've seen homeless people sleeping on benches or sidewalks, but homelessness in our community goes far beyond those images.
I couldn't do anything but just stay awake, wondering how and where we was gonna get up bed to rest at.
The face of homelessness evolving in an ever-changing city.
They're saying that the new face of homelessness right now is an infant.
From family tragedy to the financial struggles that young people face, homelessness becomes a desperate effort to survive.
It could be a divorce or a loss of job, a broken down car. 47% of Americans cannot afford a $400 emergency.
They are the faces you see, but know nothing about. The It City, home to only those who can afford to live here.
This is Nashville 2018, Homeless in Music City. News 2's Live Town Hall begins now.
And good evening, everyone, and welcome as we begin our discussion of homelessness and ways to solve it. I'm Bob Mueller.
And I'm Haley Wilkes. Homelessness is a problem that's growing along with Nashville's historic growth. Tonight, we have a panel of experts to discuss ways to get people off of the streets and into a home.
What's the biggest misconception you deal with on a daily basis, Cheryl?
That people want to be there, that they want to be in this situation
They
in
put
which they
themselves
found
there on
themselves,
purpose.
or that you might understand why they're there. It's a multi-layered story every time.
Judy?
That people are different just because they're without housing. Homelessness is a housing status.
Rachel?
I think that we need to forget, we oftentimes forget that they're people. They're somebody's father or brother, they're veterans, and this is just a part of their story. It doesn't define who they are.
A lot of times I think the misconception is that it fits into a couple categories. Either they have mental illness or they have a substance abuse issue. They don't see really that there are people who don't face either of those issues who are homeless.
But what does happen is every person who experiences homelessness experiences trauma. So who wouldn't have anxiety after that, or who of us would not go to have a drink, just to calm our nerves. So I mean, I'm not sure that mental health and addiction cause homelessness, but sometimes they are the result of.
It is unacceptable to have families and children who sleep on the street, who have to sleep in the cars, who are staying in unsafe places like hotels and motels.
Welcome back to our live town hall. Nashville 2018, Homeless in Music City, continues now.
We want to get your views, too, of what we're discussing, homelessness in Music City. Go to Facebook, go to Twitter. Christy writes on Facebook, rental prices are out of control. Even working people can't afford what most places are charging.
The fight to save old Nashville as the city evolves.
You have to have some living history evidence.
And the risks of history vanishing. Nashville 2018, Progress versus Preservation. Thursday in every newscast only on News 2.
For Gary Burke, stepping onto Fort Negley is a reminder of slavery's painful past.
Even out of that series of degradation for many black people in the U.S., they were able to overcome that and become soldiers and fight for their freedom.
It's this sense of pride Burke had been sharing with others at the fort as a Civil War reenactor. 6 years later, in 2007, a life-changing discovery.
At first, I wept.
Burke's own blood.
My great-great-grandfather, Peter Bailey.
One of the U.S. colored troops stationed at Fort Negley.
It's a full circle moment. To find that out just gave more honor and dignity to the 10,133 men of color who served in Tennessee.
But preserving this history hit a roadblock. Efforts to turn the fort into a national military park failed. So in 1928, the city purchased the site and over the decades, reconstruction and restoration into Fort Negley Park. But a new battle began in 2017. Developers, with the support of then Nashville Mayor Megan Barry, proposed building a mixed-use development on a dilapidated 21 acres bordering the Fort Greer Stadium. Building Fort Negley was 3 months of intense labor. The stones quarried locally and built by the hands of more than 2,700 African-American laborers, many who sought protection here in Nashville, but died because of harsh conditions. In January, an archaeological firm found that the human remains of the laborers are highly likely underneath at least part of this fort here at Greer Stadium. The plans withdrawn after that very discovery.
They were working here almost like slaves. Yet the fundamental difference is that they realized that what they were working on would contribute to an effort that would lead to their emancipation.
Clay Bailey is the president of Friends of Fort Negley. Those behind the proposal meant he was working against big names in real estate and music, like T-Bone Burnett. Any doubt in that process?
Oh yeah, we really wondered whether we could make any headway at all.
In March, Mayor David Briley vowed to reincorporate the stadium back into Fort Negley Park.
This is a moment, this is a place where we begin to acknowledge and to atone and to seek reconciliation.
The plan is twofold. First, demolish the stadium and seed grass on the site. Second, design a green space reflecting the history of the fort.
There might be some sort of water feature.
Other ideas: theme play spaces after the Civil War, a memorial trail to honor African-American laborers, even a U.S. Colored Troops Institute.
We want people leaving this site saying, wow, I didn't realize that, because it is a place where people can experience epiphanies.
Epiphanies in a space with so much history.
We need something for the future for people to see.
Linda Ong, News 2.
925. They sing at the altar of the Mother Church of country music, a mecca for many of the greatest artists who ever lived.
Harry Houdini, Teddy Roosevelt, Charlie Chaplin, Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Nat King Cole to Johnny Cash.
If attending a concert at the Ryman Auditorium feels like a religious experience, it should. The building opened in 1892 as a non-denominational tabernacle.
The purpose was to make this a fortress of God for the city, a religious gathering place. The only problem was the board quickly realized they couldn't make enough money off of the expected donations to pay off the debt, so they started having secular events in the building.
Joshua Bronnenberg is the museums and tours manager for the Ryman, a venue which grew quickly from its humble beginnings.
Circuses to boxing matches to operas. Everything came through our doors. We were known as the Carnegie Hall of the South.
In 1943, the Ryman became home to the world-famous radio show, The Grand Ole Opry. 20 years later, in 1963, National Life Insurance Company bought the Ryman and renamed it the Grand Ole Opry House. The Opry left in 1974 after 31 years and headed to its new home at Opryland.
March 15, 1974, the Grand Ole Opry broadcast what they thought not only would be the last Opry in the venue, but the last show altogether.
It's hard to imagine Nashville without the Ryman, but this building went dark for 20 years, and it was in serious jeopardy of being demolished. It took a grassroots effort to save it.
It was a sad thing for locals when the Ryman went dark. They wanted to save the old Ryman. The owners didn't really see much use in keeping the building. There was a lot of local campaigns to save the Ryman.
Campaigns that went all the way to Washington. Tennessee Senators Howard Baker and Neil Brock went to the White House to lobby for saving the building and designating it as a National Historic Landmark, despite competing efforts to tear it down.
There were some weird ideas, I will say. There was actually a plan at one time to deconstruct the Ryman and to build a chapel with the bricks next to the Opry House. house. There were also talks about doing some encasing the Ryman in a glass dome along with parts of Lower Broadway. Luckily, these projects all fell through, and we're still here today.
The revival began in 1983 when Gaylord Entertainment bought the Ryman and started a series of major renovations.
All the oak pews you see here are original to the building.
Restored beyond its former glory, the Ryman reopened in 1994 and was declared a National Historic Landmark in 2001.
Today we're seen as a jewel of the city. I mean, people love the building. I think it's a treasure for Nashville. We would have lost a part of ourselves as a city if the Ryman went away.
In the heart of Music City, Nashville's soul lives on.
The Ryman Auditorium was named for Nashville riverboat captain Thomas Ryman, who was inspired to create this religious gathering place by Reverend Sam Jones. It was originally called the Union Gospel Tabernacle. And then a legendary woman, Lula Naff, the Ryman's longtime manager, turned the venue into the cultural icon it is today. So
Everyone should
amazing.
see a concert in the Ryman.
I'm
It's
still
just the
waiting to
best.
do that.
You will
Looking forward
experience
to it.
nothing like it. It's just terrific.
Yeah.
You know, all day we've been showing you the progress versus preservation here in Music City. In our online poll, we're asking, do you think Nashville has found a balance? Well, so far, 89% of you do not. You say no, while the rest say yes. You can still cast your vote at WKRN.com.
Middle Tennessee is booming, but at what cost?
Over half of our water main are more than 40 years old.
The impact this historic growth is having on our infrastructure and your day-to-day life.
With increased population, there are more calls.
Nashville 2018.
It can be a strain on our system.
Thursday in every newscast.
When it rains, it pours in Nashville. Most of it eventually destined for the Cumberland River, making its way through countless creeks and streams. But long before it's here, it collects in your roads and yards. So, in steps Metro's Stormwater Division.
It's a lot of little things and little places over a very large area.
To say Nashville's stormwater system is complex is putting it mildly, including more than 42,000 inlets, feeding into 821 miles of mostly underground culvert, spitting into the Cumberland out of more than 8,500 outfalls. But too often, the rain seems to stay where it lands.
Stormwater is one of those challenging areas where even though you do work, there's always more work to be done.
The 2013 Music City Infrastructure Report described Nashville's stormwater system as poor. The flood of 2010 putting a strain on an already underfunded program, piling projects sky high.
It has been a game of catch-up, and we're still playing a game of catch-up. You know, we still have projects that we are aware of and have been aware of for, 5-7 years.
Every dot on this map a project, but Metro Water is now chipping away at the problem after increasing their stormwater user fee, now pulling in an estimated $34.6 million a year.
So now with the increased funding, we're able to say, we're going to do those priority projects, but we're also going to take a chunk of money, about $3 million, and put towards those lower end projects.
On the state level, TDOT has been fighting rainwater for more than a decade, using high quality, top of the line asphalt, made to make the water disappear. This pavement, known as open graded friction coarse.
It's an asphalt pavement that is specifically designed in the material phase so that it's porous. Because it's porous, the water will drain below the surface. It reduces hydroplaning.
The asphalt used on nearly half of Tennessee interstates. Studies by TDOT finding that wet weather crashes reduced by 32% on the roadways. An important piece to the puzzle, though, lies with you at home. Preventative measures helping to stop these dangerous ponds.
The more help that we have from the community in keeping that stuff clean, not putting pollution in, not allowing debris to clog things, the more time and money we can spend to do these projects that need to be done as well.
And though the projects pour in like Tennessee rain, Metro Water will use education and increase funding to stem the tide.
All day, News 2 investigates the historic growth of Nashville and the strain on the system. A growing population means more trash, and it has to go somewhere. News 2's Linda Ong looks at how it's putting a strain on our area landfills and what's being done to address this.
It's not exactly the most attractive of sights or smells. But airspace at landfills to store trash is key when it comes to managing waste.
Several years ago, we got into a little situation where we became very short on airspace, and it became it became an incredible challenge for this community.
David Graham manages Bi-County Solid Waste that serves Montgomery and Stewart counties.
And we had to divert some trash.
That very situation now faced by the largest landfill in Middle Tennessee that takes in the majority of Nashville's waste, Middle Point Landfill in Murfreesboro.
Middle Point Landfill would close eventually, but I think the plan was for it to have lots more life than it has now.
Solid Waste Program Manager Becky Caldwell from the Greater Nashville Regional Council says experts have shortened the landfill's projected lifespan from 10 years to 6.
The biggest challenge is that we have a lot of growth in Middle Tennessee. Don't know that anyone would have expected this growth 5 years ago if you asked them, and so more people bring more waste.
More waste also piling up at Bi-County. About 700 tons of household trash come to that space right there here at Bi-County Waste in Montgomery County. It's set for a lifespan of about 10 years, but with the growing population in and around Nashville, it could be much shorter.
If I have to take in an additional 200-300 tons a day of Class 1, that 10 to 12 years just became 7 to 8 years.
Caldwell says merely moving waste from one landfill to another isn't a long-term solution. That's why the council's waste directors from 13 counties are working on the first solid waste management plan for the region.
The goal is that we would find opportunities for all of the area that could not only serve ourselves but also serve some of the surrounding counties that would be beneficial for long-term future use.
Part of the solution is looking at waste diversion.
So you start with reusing and recycling, and then you go to composting, and then you move into a waste-to-energy solution, and then landfilling.
The Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation uses grants to support diversion programs.
Well, we know that across the country, about a quarter of the waste that is actually sent to the landfill currently is some type of organic matter in nature. And when we say organic matter, that means that it could be a food resource.
There are also new technologies.
Biofuels, incineration, gasification projects, those types of technologies, as they become more mainstream and more economically viable, they're going to reduce the amount of solid waste that we put into our landfills.
Graham says as he explores these options, he may soon have to use the additional 12 years of airspace he recently permitted, and that could become part of the solution.
So what we do up here impacts other landfills in the Middle Tennessee region. What they do impacts us. It's almost a concert of moving solid waste within the region.
That was Linda Ong reporting. Caldwell will write the first regional solid waste management plan for the state. They expect to roll it out in June of next year. To see more of our Nashville 2018 stories, Strain on the System, head over to WKRN.com.